In 2012, the Sault Ste. Marie International Bridge marks 50 years, joining the cities of Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario and Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, the state of Michigan and the province of Ontario, and the United States and Canada. First opened to traffic in October of 1962, the International Bridge has been a local link for commuters, students, and shoppers, and an international connection for tourism, manufacturing, and global commerce for half a century. Like many other water crossings of its kind, travel across the St. Mary's River between the Twin Saults took place for many years via ferry services. But as both countries developed their interstate and interprovincial highway systems, recognition grew for the need to construct a more expedient, convenient crossing. Jim McIntyre, former mayor of Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, and longtime Bridge Authority board member, was part of that planning.
At that time, crossing the river was achieved by a ferry system, and it didn't run 24 hours, which is a major problem for some people. But there were also huge lineups in the city, and I was working for a company that had its office on Brock Street, and the ferry dock was at the end of Brock Street. I saw those lineups every day.
Larry Walls, who went on to a career working at the International Bridge, saw those traffic backups too.
I worked for the International Transit. That was a ferry boat crossing between the two Saults. We broke the ice crossing the river as best we could when it was winter. You know, it was frozen up, but we kept a channel going across.
A solution was needed, but a bridge in the current location wasn't the only possibility.
Now, the St. Mary's River Bridge Company at that time was a group of interested people, Chamber of Commerce individuals, people from the Steelworkers Union, City Council, and their job was to promote the idea of a bridge. And there was a similar group active in Michigan, and it was their work that resulted in the bridge finally being built. The St. Mary's River Bridge Company is the result of an act of the federal parliament in 1935, and it provided for either a bridge or a tunnel. Well, the idea of a tunnel was quickly dismissed, partly because of the cost of construction, but also for security reasons, and the fact that to get to a tunnel, there's a long lead, and it would have required acquiring a lot of property on both sides of the river.
As with all big bridges, designers and builders of the International Bridge faced a daunting task. They needed not only to cross the St. Mary's River and the Sault Locks, but integrate travel at both ends of the new bridge. 5 different locations were considered for the proposed bridge. Fortunately, the decision was relatively simple.
Now, we were invited to meet the Premier in Toronto, we being John Curran, who was president of the Chamber of Commerce, and myself, to discuss the bridge location. And when we were ushered into the Premier's office in Toronto, he said, well, let's get right down to business. He said, now, gentlemen, if you think the Huron Street location is suitable, you're going to see action very soon. If you prefer some other location, it might take a while. Mr. Curran nodded to me to respond. So I said, Mr. Premier, Mr. Curran and I think Huron Street is perfect. So that's how the bridge got to be where it is.
Between 1953 and 1955, all the necessary state, provincial, and federal approvals were obtained. $16 million in bonds were issued in Michigan, half purchased by the province of Ontario, to fund construction of the bridge. Designed by Steinman, Boynton, Gronquist, and London of New York, the 1.9-mile bridge incorporated a 4-span continuous arch design, the first time that design had been used.
Yeah, I like the design of the bridge. It's really a good fit for the St. Mary's River. If you're looking at it from a distance, it rises and then falls. It rises over the locks, and then when it makes landfall in mid-river, it falls again. And that was done to conserve concrete, but it really gave a nice aesthetic effect to the bridge.
Groundbreaking for the new bridge took place on September 16, 1960, and crews, half Canadian and half American, began work. 62 piers support the total weight of 125,000 tons of concrete and steel. On April 17, 1962, the two sides met in the middle of the span.
After the bridge was started and the steel was up, there was a ribbon cutting ceremony, and I thought my instructions were to go to the construction office on the American side. So I had a colleague in town. I was working for Air Canada, and a traveling auditor was in town that day. So he and I got in my car, crossed the river on the ferry, and we headed for the construction office, where I was told, no, the ceremony's not here. It's out on the bridge where Canada meets the US. So I said to my friend, I've been assured nobody has to make a speech, this won't take 5 minutes. So I climbed up a ladder, more than 100 feet, and when I got up there, I found that I had to walk to where Canada meets the US, which is about a mile away. And the section over the locks, thankfully, had a handrail. And I was walking on 3 2x12s, but I had the handrail. But when I got to the end of the locks, the handrail disappeared. So I had to walk the rest of the distance on these, and I think it was 3 2x12s. And there was the gathering that had assembled from the Canadian side. And the ceremony itself was simple. Roy Lynn was the mayor of Sault, Michigan, and he and I wielded a large pair of scissors, cut a ribbon. Then I had to walk back the same way. And when I got to the other end, got down to my car, my friend said, "You have to be nuts doing that." And I said, I would never have done it if somebody had told me in advance what was entailed. So I think that was probably the original bridge walk.
While some traffic began to flow on the new bridge a few days earlier, the official opening date was October 31st, 1962. Larry Walls chose a different date to mark the opening, October 22nd, and retired exactly 40 years later.
My date is October the 22nd, 1962. I just remember that being the date when the traffic started flowing across the bridge. In fact, my mother took the bus from the Canadian side, went across the ferry on the last trip, and then swung around and went over the bridge.
Regardless of the official date, local residents immediately enjoyed the benefits of the new bridge.
Well, I think the people who really appreciated the bridge the day it was open were those who had formerly used the ferry service. I don't think anyone was unhappy to see the end of the ferry service.
The gleaming new green and ivory span was completed at last. As a binational effort, the bridge was jointly owned by the United States and Canada. The original governing agreement has been changed twice over the past 50 years. The bridge is jointly owned by the state of Michigan, represented in the first agreement by the Michigan State Highway Department, and in later agreements the Michigan Department of Transportation, and the St. Mary's River Bridge Company, a wholly owned subsidiary of Federal Bridge Corporation Limited, a Canadian Crown corporation.
Well, when the bridge was first opened, what made it possible was the sale of bonds in Michigan. It was a 40-year bond, and the authority consisted of 3 people appointed by the governor in Michigan, and there were 2 Canadians, but they were non-voting members. Now, it's worth saying that the Canadians were treated as equals, and they attended the meetings, participated in the discussions, and their point of view was taken into account. But it wasn't until the bonds were retired in 2000 that we had a true international board. We looked at 9 different models of management and settled on the structure that we have today. Our history of collaboration was there. We knew we could get along and work together, and so we went for a joint operation.
In 2009, that agreement was redrawn. The number of representatives from each country was increased to 4, and the board renamed the Sault Ste. Marie Bridge Authority.
The operation and governance of the Sault Ste. Marie International Bridge is based on a history of partnership and cooperation. We have a legacy of binational cooperation between the United States and Canada. The mission of the Sault Ste. Marie Bridge Authority is to promote cross-border trade and commerce at the local level, at the regional level, and at the national level. I think that we have accomplished that in many ways.
Despite the binational makeup of the board, the business of managing the bridge transcends nationality.
It's been a pleasure. I've been involved in quite a few committees in my lifetime, and none has been more congenial than the Bridge Authority. The members are there to do what they can to make sure that the bridge is well maintained, that the staff functions well, that we do what the public expects us to do. For me, in my experience, it's the ideal way that a board should function, and it has for all the years that I've been involved in it.
I think there's been firm agreement on the day-to-day management and on the capital long-range planning. In fact, we have an agreement, and because you need, whenever you're dealing with two countries and an international structure, you need to have an agreement. But oftentimes, with a handshake, we can come to an agreement. We work as if we're one unit, even though we're two countries, one unit.
This partnership between the Michigan governments and the Canadian governments goes back to the very early stages in the designing, construction, maintaining, operating of that bridge. Goes way back, goes 50 years. And it's a really strong partnership. And frankly, that's what a successful border operation really needs. It needs a strong partnership between the two main owners. And I think what we have here is a model. And it's a model about how all of these crossings ought to be put together and how they ought to be managed.
Since the beginning, the International Bridge Administration, or IBA, has handled the day-to-day operation of the bridge and toll collection, as well as ongoing maintenance of the bridge and associated facilities.
We at the Sault Ste. Marie International Bridge Administration really view our responsibility not only to maintain the infrastructure, but to maintain a connection.
The men and women of the IBA collect tolls from bridge customers, keep the bridge deck plowed, maintain the structure and its components, and work with their two border protection agencies to maintain security of this critical border crossing.
Over the years, we've been blessed at the International Bridge with dedicated and diligent staff, and they're out there in all types of weather, in very dense traffic conditions, and they're doing things like painting bridge rails, working on the concrete bridge deck, crawling and climbing underneath the bridge to access portions that the public doesn't even see that are essential to maintaining the integrity of the structure.
We've got one of the best teams, and I think one of the main issues that the board will discuss is that the MDOT and FBCL are worried about is what are we going to do in the future, because we want these individuals that are doing a fantastic job to be here forever. We have employees that were recognized either by the Canadian government or by the American government for their excellent performance. So we've got a high-performance team here, all the way up actually, from toll agents to the financial, the engineering team, and Phil Becker that does a wonderful job at leading that team.
IBA employees are technically employed by the Michigan Department of Transportation, but direction comes from the Bridge Authority Board. Continuing the binational nature of the organization, half of the IBA employees are Canadian citizens and half are American.
The International Bridge Administration employees that our public sees out on the bridge, that our public meets in the toll booths. It's those employees that really represent the International Bridge Administration to our public.
We used to have darn good employees. We have some great employees that work at the IBA. They are dedicated, and they are serving the customers very, very well, day in and day out, and making sure that that operation is as best as possible. I'm really proud of the employees that work at the International Bridge Administration.
That pride is also exhibited in the condition of the bridge, now 50 years old.
There's been 50 consecutive inspections of the International Bridge, and every year we get very high rating for the condition of the bridge. We have built a long legacy of excellent maintenance on the structure. We have engineers of national renown that look at this structure and say that for its age, it's the best condition that they've ever seen.
For a bridge that is that old, the bridge is in excellent shape, and we've been getting those results from our engineering inspectors that the bridge is exceptionally well maintained. That's primarily due to the maintenance efforts that have been done over the years by the people that work out on the bridge. It's my maintenance crew. They take a great deal of pride in what they do and in making sure that the bridge is well maintained.
The bridge is 50 years old. Often people question, how long can a bridge exist? And with the proactive, preventative maintenance practices that are in place at the Sault Ste. Marie International Bridge, this bridge can last a long time.
While the International Bridge is a link for trade and shipping, it's also a local crossing. More than half the bridge's customers are local commuters crossing for work, school, shopping, and services.
We certainly are a connection that makes one international community. We are well aware of our customers and what their needs are. We have customers that cross for entertainment, for family, extended family, cross-border relationships, shopping, travel, leisure, outdoors. We're really blessed here, and we take our responsibility to provide a safe and efficient international crossing between our two communities very seriously.
Oh, I think the relationship is excellent between the two communities. If you take a look at, I know the Chambers of Commerce, they work together on different things. I know that myself as Convention and Visitors Bureau and the Sioux Tourism in Sioux, Ontario, we work really close together. We promote each other's assets. I said, so I think that, you know, we're really connected and we will stay that way. We may be two nations, but we are one city.
Some of the international trade that crosses the Sioux Bridge is local in nature, and some extends much farther.
Well, the trade patterns between the U.S. and Canada can't be duplicated anywhere in the world. Each of the bridges connecting Canada to the United States is important. There's a vast amount of trade that crosses the Sault Ste. Marie International Bridge. Well, one of the prominent things that you see when you go north on our bridge is the steel plant. It's the major employer. It's one of the biggest operations in northern Ontario. And a lot of its product is sold in Michigan. And a lot of it is trucked. So obviously, the bridge is essential to moving that product. A lot of it is intended for the automobile industry, and Michigan is still an important producer of cars and trucks. The Sault Ste. Marie International Bridge is the only crossing in some 600 miles of border between the U.S. and Canada. So we realize its importance to tourism, to trade, and to the local communities.
Though local to many, the International Bridge remains an international border and is protected as such. U.S. Customs and Border Protection and the Canadian Border Services Agency keep the border secure at each end of the span.
Since 9/11, I think that, you know, it's, we have to be more secure. We have to think differently than we used to think. You know, we used to take it for granted for being here, but now we have to really think how important this bridge is. Not just to the two Sioux, but to the Michigan and Ontario and Canada and the U.S.
Though tolls have changed over time, from $1.25 per car in the beginning to $3 now, adjusted periodically to reflect currency exchange rates, those revenues remain the primary source of funding to maintain the bridge.
Bridge maintenance and operations is paid for by the bridge customers, the users. So every day somebody comes through or across the bridge, doesn't matter which direction, north or south, they pass through tolls. Tolls are collected. Those in turn go back to support day-to-day operations and long-term capital projects.
Bridge tolls are almost our sole source of income. We have some income from rental to the duty-free stores and to customs brokers, but the vast majority of our income is from tolls. So tolls are what keep us going. And our engineering report tells us that the bridge has been maintained in excellent shape. Tolls achieve that.
Toll revenues will also pay for future large capital projects projected to cost tens of millions of dollars. These will include reconstruction of the toll plaza and IBA facilities, repainting of the steel bridge arches, and eventually replacing the concrete bridge deck.
rates were kept really low for the customers and were never adjusted for inflation. If we would have adjusted tolls every year or on a recurring basis to cover costs, operational costs have gone up 500%. Tolls would be $7.50 today, not even adjusted for inflation. We're still only charging $3. So it's always been a goal of the Bridge Authority to keep the rates as low as possible to benefit the public, but not sacrifice the structure itself and make sure that it's maintained well.
This organization, we're talking about celebrating the 50th anniversary, and this organization is already thinking of the next 50 years. So we're already on the 100th from a planning point of view, and that's what you want to do in the bridge business. You want to make sure that you're thinking today about tomorrow.
While the U.S. government replaced its customs facility in 2006, the Canadian customs facility is also in need of upgrade. The Canadian government in 2009 pledged $44 million for that project, which is to begin construction in 2012. The Sault Ste. Marie International Bridge now boasts a 50-year history, one of stewardship, cooperation, and international friendship. For the 1963 formal bridge dedication, the U.S. President offered his own video message of congratulations and spoke of those very values.
The new international bridge, joining Canada and the United States at historic Sault Ste. Marie, is a fitting symbol of the continued friendship, commerce, and cooperation between our two great countries. I am very pleased at this opportunity to greet the people of Michigan and Ontario who have worked so hard to make this bridge possible and to congratulate them on their achievement. This new international bridge is more than just a new and better means of crossing a river. It is another link in the strong bonds of friendship that tie our two countries together. I think it is important to note that this building of this bridge was truly a joint endeavor. The cost was shared by Canada and the United States. Contractors and workers were Canadian and American. Canadians and Americans will also jointly operate and maintain this new structure. And the traffic that flows across its 2-mile length, 24 hours a day, will be both Canadian and American. I deeply regret that I cannot attend the formal dedication of the bridge on May 24th, but I appreciate this opportunity to extend my warmest best wishes and congratulations to the people of our two countries upon the successful completion of this important international project, this important effort by our two great countries.
The plan for the next 50 years is to continue those same values.
I think we have to continue on with what we've been doing. You know, it's been quite a wonderful experience. I've been with the bridge for 3 years now, and every visit is another joy. We have to continue with forward planning. We have to build on the strengths that we have. So go look back at what's worked well and continue with that. Continue investing in our fantastic team.
I'm pretty excited about it, the 50th anniversary. I said, you know, I mean, you take a look at this bridge and how beautiful it is. I mean, I was up in an office looking down at the bridge yesterday, and it's beautiful. And it's in such great shape already, still, you know.
It certainly is an opportunity to be a part of the celebration for the 50th anniversary, a key milestone in the life of any structure, let alone an international crossing. So we're really looking forward to gathering the communities together, our great nations, our people together for a celebration of international friendship.
I believe that the foundation that's been set in the last 50 years is really going to help tremendously going into the future. We've got a bridge that is very well maintained. We've got a plan to maintain it into the future. We've got sound financial resources. We've got the bridge authority in place, we've got the administration in place, and frankly, I think we're set up very, very well for the future.